So the second article is mathematical cornucopia of pumpkin. So I feel like kind of the article overview could really be summed up in almost the last bit of the article, which one of the students was quoting, or they quoted one of the students saying, "I don't know about that, but I bet we could find out." And I just think that's such evidence of this whole investigation of pumpkins and just all of the interesting questions they went through and the data they went through and the scientific inquiry, mathematical processes, all the different things that they used while they were going through this unit. So I love that there are multiple entry points. I love that this was hands-on and mind-on, and that it was open-ended and several acceptable solutions were taken by the teachers. So I just think this is good practice in general for math teachers. For teachers, all teachers, but specifically math because I feel like we can get so bottlenecked, or at least that's how I learned and am currently unlearning everything I've learned, I feel like, in school. Elementary and high school, not right now. So, anyways, the second quote I have here, just under the article overview, is the spirit of wonder and inquiry and measurement met our goal of authentic practice in measurement. So just again reiterating that that whole inquiry-based learning, that spirit of wonder, actually met the teacher's goals or their objectives for this lesson, and I think that's awesome. So just a little I kind of broke this down, and we'll have a whole article kind of summary throughout speaking. So, and the quotes will be within the summary of the article. So I found that a little bit easier this time. So this was a 4-day investigation that led students to measure attributes of a pumpkin and to inquire if they are able to identify relationships or trends within the data they collected. I love how closely math is related with science. And I remember reading and teaching science that they should always be paired together, which I think is awesome. And I will always remember that as I go forward. And they can be easily integrated together in a unit. These students are using their mathematical processes. They're measuring length to the nearest centimeter, mass to the nearest gram, etc. They're doing volume. They're measuring volume along with scientific inferring and predicting, and that is all part of the scientific method. So again, I just love that you compare these two so well together. And the first day of this unit was filled with posing interesting questions, which I love, and making measurements against these inquiries. Like, example, what measurements can we collect regarding these pumpkins? After all measurements are exhausted, the author reminds us to allow students to measure a pumpkin in any valid way, that they can defend it first and then allow them to demonstrate it, which I think is awesome. And this would come potentially at the end of measuring, which allows this to be open-ended and not a fixed process. And I think that's great because sometimes even we miss it as the leaders of the class, or as we're kind of driving the lesson. I think sometimes we can miss something that they would see that we wouldn't see with our adult brains. So the first quote I picked out was, "At the heart of this investigation is the opportunity for students to gain confidence in asking their own questions and using mathematical tools to analyze and answer these questions." So I think this is crucial because the student is being heard. The teacher allowed many different ideas and questions regarding the pumpkins, even if they weren't used in the investigations. and I was saying that I believe it is crucial, as this was a brainstorming activity, but it allowed the students to take ownership within the lesson and know that his or her question was at least heard, even if it wasn't ultimately used. So they gained that confidence. I think sometimes students, they don't speak up or they don't speak out because they feel like that, Anthony always is the smartest in the class and always has the best answers or questions. But maybe little Sarah's question would have led us to Anthony's question, which maybe would have best been a better question. But if we didn't have hers to begin with, we wouldn't have gotten to the better question. So I just think it's great brainstorming. And also the not responding as one is better than another also is so important. And it's something that I'm also learning with the growth mindset. So I love that, again, that the students were given the opportunity to ask their own questions. And the article actually mentions, which brings me to my next quote, is the quantity of ideas is praised. And I love that so much. Ideas beget ideas, and eventually we unearth the best possible questions to measure during this unit. And I obviously understand that this is going to be guided, and we're not going to answer every single question, but also I love that kind of Socratic method that sit around the table, let's throw some ideas out there, and maybe we can get to the best solution or the best 5 interesting questions, or so on and so forth. And also it allows, just as this unit did, allows you to build on it as opposed to just ending it, ending the lesson, ending the unit, and moving on. So, at the end of the day, at the end of day 1, the students were led to generate 5 interesting questions that ended up naturally showing themes or like ideas. So the teacher was easily able to transition to the next day, which is awesome. On day 2, the students were measuring volume and cubing pumpkins. They measured volume through water displacement. I like this lesson because it allowed the student to visualize conservation or logical thinking according to Piaget of volume. So I had to look that whole idea of conservation or that logical thinking that Piaget talks about, and to bring that into the lesson is awesome for volume. So and then the author was mentioning if students don't have a well-developed sense of conservation of volume, this experience would be an eye-opener because they're using water displacement. So like when you get into the bathtub or you put the pumpkin in the water-filled tray. During the investigation, interesting questions are ongoing. So the teacher can pose questions like, if I know the pumpkin's blank, can I predict blank? And again, science and math integration. I just love that. So that's the inferring, that's the predicting, all of that. So let's see. And during the 3rd day, the students count seeds and looked for trends. They look at how many seeds are in a pumpkin, and do larger pumpkins have more seeds and smaller pumpkins? And as a teacher inquired about the seeds, most students originally thought that the larger pumpkins equaled more. As they began to cut into the pumpkins, they were surprised to observe the opposite of their belief, and the inquiry continued as they asked, do larger pumpkins have larger seeds? And again, just that questioning begets questioning, and I love that. So the last day, the students explored interesting questions with scattered plots to notice relationships. While this investigation was flexible, it was also guided, and although not all of the interesting questions the students generated at the end of the day were able to be answered, it allowed students to take ownership during this lesson, which means they will most likely be more engaged and take in the information being discovered. And I even know as a student, when I feel like my ideas are heard, I feel more ownership in my learning, and I have seen that in tutoring as I've gone along in the past year of him owning his work and owning the things that we're working through. he's more excited about it. He's more excited to come to learn more. So that is my final quote. Number 3 is ownership is an important goal in maintaining motivation in both mathematical analysis and scientific inquiry. And if a student doesn't know why they're learning an objective or taking place in a project, or doesn't feel like his or her thoughts are being valued, I feel like they're just less motivated to take part and engage authentic learning, which pairs with when the author says, for investigations in mathematics and science to engage students, they must be fun. And I just feel like that sums up the whole article. I thought it was great food for thought. For investigations in mathematics and science to engage students, it must be fun. And I will say from my experience of talking with my student that I tutor, I asked him why he doesn't like math, and he says it's not fun. And so I feel like that is a true thing that kids think about a lot. And I know that the more engaged I am, the more fun it is and the more I learn. So this was a great article, and thank you so much.